Well, we might be a little bit lonely in here at the moment, but we'll see what happens. We
Oh,
can
people
still,
will come. We send
people
out
will
the
come. They
net,
always do.
cast the net, the
Yeah,
language
we'll get
of
some.
language love,
Of course,
and
people are joining now, so that's great.
fantastic.
And so today we're here to talk about learning languages on our own. So my name is Sam. I'm one of the two founders of Linguas Francas, the online language school, and I teach English, Spanish, and Portuguese to professionals and entrepreneurs around the world. And that's kind of what I do. How about you? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm Ruben. I'm the founder of Linguistix Pronunciation, where accents speak louder than words. And I help people develop natural pronunciation in 4 or 5 different languages, so they can build confidence and avoid any frustration that comes with speaking a foreign language with new people, and just to create positive first impressions. So we'll talk about learning a language on your own today, and I'll give my insight when it comes to the pronunciation side of things, and hopefully we can give you some expert techniques, some things that maybe you haven't thought of before. Who knows? The possibilities are endless. We already have happy people here.
Great. Happiness is lovely. The world should have more of it. That would be great. So I am happy too. Or me three, which isn't exactly correct English, but we say that all the time. So to start things off, let's talk about kind of what can sometimes happen when you try to learn a language on your own. In your experience, Ruben, what's the most common, I guess, process that people tend to have when they decide, I'm going to learn a language on my own, and then they try to go about doing it? What usually happens?
Usually, that's the key word here, right? I would say that most people will take a course. People rely on other teachers in the class setting for their beginning stages. People nowadays try to find more resources online for free, but I would say joining some kind of course, whether it's online or in person, buying books, or purchasing the books that come with the course, and kind of focusing on building some starter vocabulary, maybe learning some greetings and useful phrases like you might do when you're traveling. And I think it kind of continues that way, and until they know anything else, you kind of follow whatever it is that you started with. So if you're starting with a class, you usually kind of finish that curriculum. But of course, there's countless ways to go about it. Well, is there anything that you would add or change to the typical way of learning a language?
Well, I'd say even if you are learning on your own,
Mm-hmm.
I recommend getting advice. I recommend talking to someone who has taught him or herself a language before. And ideally, you would be getting at least coaching, regular advice. That would be even better. So you can talk about your progress, areas of difficulty, and where you need improvement, and also how to improve in those kinds of ways. The reason is because if you just follow the pre-prescribed kind of lessons that are on a lot of these how to teach yourself Spanish, let's say, a lot of the time, it's not exactly the most efficient way to learn a language, for one. And for another, everyone learns a little bit differently. No two people are 100% the same.
Mm-hmm.
There are many similarities, and a lot of things work for a lot of people, but there are always differences, and everyone's unique. So I'm a big supporter of kind of individualizing and personalizing the learning process as much as possible. So
Yeah. So disconnecting how would you learn a language by yourself versus how would you learn a language before? I was answering that question about kind of generally what you would what you would do if you were to learn a language, if you had all the resources to. But we're talking about doing this on your own, and I think the internet is a big tool now for people
Absolutely.
learning languages, finding conversation partners, or even full on teachers just to to get ahead. But is that considered on your own? I guess we can talk about this too. Where do you draw the line between I'm learning by myself, or I have a series of teachers, whether they're friends or formal teachers, from whom I'm, learning all this new information?
Mm-hmm.
Am I doing this on my own? How do you define that? Can we define some boundaries here?
That's a good question. Well, I would say if you have to draw the line somewhere, I would say that it almost never happens that someone truly learns a language on his or her own, on their own. Because anytime you're interacting with someone and they say, oh, it's this way, or just simply if you're having a conversation, if there's give and take on both sides, then I would argue, in a sense, you are learning from that person. Even though they're not trying to teach you, you are by default learning kind of through absorption instead of instruction, if that makes sense.
So you can never learn by yourself.
Well,
right, the Blab's over, guys. The answer is no. Can you learn? No, I'm kidding.
Can you learn language on your own? No, you can. You can. But the only way to really do it would be to read, to watch movies, to listen to audio recordings, but there wouldn't be a give and take. There wouldn't be a communication aspect to it. The second you are communicating with another individual who isn't just a computer, but who can have a legitimate conversation with you, you are learning from that person, whether you realize it or not. Mm-hmm. So I would argue in that sense, if we're going to draw the line there, it's very unlikely that you will completely learn a language entirely on your own. But you can learn it mostly on your own, which is kind of what I wanted to talk about today. Ways to have self-guided study and work really hard to learn, to teach yourself to do all of the learning aspects you would have in a classroom, but on your own. So what do you think? Where would you draw the distinction, Ruben?
I don't know. It's funny because it's a cool thing to talk about too, because essentially you never learn anything on your own then. If you're learning guitar, you would go on YouTube and you find a tutorial. You're not really learning on your own. Someone's giving you at least their hand position so you can figure that out. Yeah. I think that maybe not paying is a good way to consider it, like doing it on your own. I know. I mean, that's a kind of a cheap way of thinking about it, but there's so many people nowadays who are just like utilizing those free resources, which they should. Everybody should. If you know that the quality may not get you to the level that you want, but at least for those first couple years, first couple months, weeks, whatever it takes until the time where you say, okay, I can't do this alone. I think utilizing free resources is, or I guess you could say you could buy a book and teach yourself, but paying money to a school or a teacher to give you help, that's where I would say you're all on your own. So whether we're talking about combining those two or kind of bridging some of the two together, if you're going to go exclusively on your own, you can still use people, but they have to be your natural friends or contacts that you would otherwise be talking to anyway.
Be careful about using people.
Don't. Well, you could still use each other. Is that better? Can you like use two people using each other? Does that cancel them out?
I guess it's a symbiotic relationship is what they would call it in biology. It's mutually beneficial. Both people can enjoy benefits from the situation. So yeah, that's true. And I don't think all ways of quote unquote using people in this regard are necessarily bad, because you're learning a language. You're enriching your minds. So, but yeah, I think it's interesting you brought up those kind of teach yourself books or CDs that you buy. Like Berlitz has a lot of those. A lot of those other big language companies have these kinds of things. And I don't know. Have you? I have kind of a funny story about those. But have you ever had experiences with those by any chance? Positive, negative?
I've looked into them a lot. I haven't purchased any, and I've gone through like video reviews and tried to see statistics of people, finishing them, results that people have received too. But, I know, because I'm a pronunciation enthusiast, and I really do like to get in that kind of mindset, just getting all immersed in the language. But I think I don't know, I think that there's incredible limitations when it comes to speaking and receiving feedback from your speaking with those online software. I think that they're great for building a basic vocabulary. The software is it's pretty modern. It's just like a lot of the websites we can use for free, but because you have to pay a little bit of money, it tends to be some kind of motivator for people too. But I've not used it personally.
Yeah, that's a key point that you just made. The fact that it's a motivator. I'm going to come back to that in a minute, but because that's I think honestly, truthfully, that's one of the reasons why it really works. But we'll come back to that. So my friend Ken was in a cafe in Italy. And he doesn't speak Italian. He speaks a few other languages, but not Italian. And tried to start up a conversation with some random guy who turns out also didn't speak much Italian. The guy was German. They started speaking Italian together, and then within about 90 seconds, they realized they had both used the same Teach Yourself program because they knew the exact same phrases.
That's awesome.
So they could respond to each other perfectly and to do exactly what they said in all of those, imagined scenarios where you go into a cafe. And then they could talk to each other, but neither of them could even order their coffees correctly. Because
they hadn't got to that level yet, or that
exactly. They couldn't have a real conversation, but they could have a conversation within the context of that textbook. So, and then it turns out they both spoke English, and they just had a conversation in English after that. But that can really kind of box you into a limited view of the language. Is I'd say one of the dangers of that. So, but as you mentioned, it can be a good financial motivator. You paid to teach yourself, so you think, well, I invested money in this. Now I want to invest time and energy. And really, when it comes down to it, I think that mentality is what it requires to teach yourself. That kind of motivation, that feeling like, now this is something I need to do. Without that, it is really difficult to teach yourself your own language, or to learn on your own. It's not going to happen on its own. You have to actively learn.
Well, can we talk about different types of these motivators, things that you would consider maybe the best motivators, and some that are maybe going to motivate you, but not as well, or not as naturally?
Sure. For one, find a way to learn the language while doing something you enjoy. And I know in the past we've talked about trying to learn the language doing different kinds of things. And I actually remember you saying, well, I don't read the newspaper, so what's the point of reading the newspaper in other languages? Well, that's a great point. That's something you shouldn't bother doing if you don't do that naturally. But if you like to watch movies and you're learning Japanese, well, watch a bunch of samurai clips. That's a great way to learn. And if you can combine learning the language with your interests, it's so much more fun. And you naturally kind of, on a subconscious level, you associate learning the language with positive feelings and good vibes, and you're much more inclined to do it. Also, tiny rewards are another great way. Give yourself a little chocolate, a little dog treat whenever you have to.
Chocolate is your reward, huh? All right.
Or whatever it takes, or whatever makes you feel good, And
as I realized as I just leaned back that we're kind of wearing the same shirt-ish. Similar looking hipster flannel, whatever the time is now.
Yeah, I guess that's what's in right now. So it looks like we have another caller joining us.
Oh, yeah?
Hello, Tajad. Well, we will see. So those are two great motivators. There are a bunch. I think different people are motivated by different things. Personally, I don't find negative reinforcement to be that effective. Making yourself feel bad or feel guilty about not accomplishing your goals that you set for yourself it doesn't really work. It kind of just makes you avoid learning the language even more. But whereas reassessing your goals and setting goals that are easier for you to do encourages you to keep working hard. What are some motivational tricks that you have found?
Found a girlfriend who speaks that language, or a boyfriend who speaks that language. That's
absolutely works.
It's just kind of you're talking about finding something that interests you. I know that's kind of along the same lines, but I'm sure we could tell stories about this too. But having someone who you're interested in, it could be a really good friend too. I know that I've felt motivated to learn languages that my students spoke natively, and I've most recently started studying a language because of that. I want to be able to relate stuff to the students more easily, and so that'll be a big factor for me. I'll tell you a story. Let's see if these guys want to come in and join us.
Hello, Jihad. Can you hear us?
Gigi, Jihad.
Gigi. And Eso.
Hey, what's up? Sorry, I have no webcam now.
Oh, okay, that's okay.
It's okay. All right. I'm 25 years old. I'm from Egypt.
Nice.
Great.
I have been studied English 8 months ago.
Great. You started studying 8 months ago. And do you study on your own?
Yep.
Great.
So maybe is Eso your first name? Eso?
It's nickname.
It's a nickname.
What's your name? What's your first name?
Islam.
Islam. Cool. That'll be easy to remember.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's easy enough to remember.
So what are some things that Islam that you use to study?
I usually use videos on YouTube.
Free.
There's I search it a lot for get useful videos. I got videos about pronunciation.
Props.
It's called Jennifer pronunciation.
Jennifer?
Jennifer pronunciation?
Uh-huh.
It sounds nice.
I don't know her.
It's very it's hopeful.
Great.
Great. I'm gonna check it out. You sound great. I mean,
what do you think about my accent?
Sounds pretty good.
You sound pretty good.
Very good about
8 months, I think you said.
8 months. That's pretty good.
I see. To learn English, I have to do a lot of effort. To learn fast.
Yeah, well, the effort sounds really good. Is Sam, you still with us? I can't see your video.
What?
I can't see Sam. Sam has left, apparently. But well, hopefully he gets back on. But so you make an effort to use the online resources for practicing for 8 months? Man, you sound really good for 8 months. That's impressive. How do you think your pronunciation is helping your English?
This day I used a book. It's called Longman 3,000 word communication.
Oh, nice.
Have you heard about that?
You know, that book in particular, I haven't, but man, both of these resources seem really good. If they've gotten you to where you are right now, that's pretty sweet. I'm going to check them out, though. Will you maybe, Islam, write the names of these in the comments so maybe other people can can benefit from these resources too.
I set 10 vocabularies to study every day.
Guys, 10 words a day.
That's great. So that's a goal
10 words.
relatively manageable, which is important. You know, you have to set goals that aren't too much. You know, what do you do? So what about those days? I'm sure you have these. Once in a while, there's a day when you wake up and you're sick, or you just have a million things to do for work, or if you're a student for classes. What do you do if at the end of that day you realize you did not learn your 10 words? What do you do?
Actually, when I get a bad day, I open videos about motivations.
Oh, nice.
Motivational
videos.
It give me some power, some
Nice.
energy.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a specific speaker or person that you follow, or just any motivational video?
General.
Just general.
Great.
Yeah, well,
that can work. You know, that's their job to motivate you. So I'd say that's
right.
I say it's hard to learn a new language, but I'm try every day.
Dude.
Well,
You're the
that's
man.
great.
This is awesome.
That's really
well, maybe
great.
we can talk about these factors that are, you know, other motivators too. Maybe we can see if Islam has examples, Sam, as well, of you know, friends or significant others. There was another one that I mentioned. Sam mentioned finding something that's interesting to you.
I see the big challenge for me. Catch a lot of word from native speaker. You usually speaking very fast, and try to understand.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing to do. We speak really fast. We try to speak slowly on the blabs because we know people are watching from everywhere, but it's sometimes hard to remember. Slow down.
Sometimes the difficult thing is that we connect words together. So you can sometimes just hear sounds instead of individual words. But yeah, anyway, it's important to listen and to focus on the sounds that native speakers make, even if you don't always understand them. Because the human brain is really, really, really an incredible thing. It's capable of learning so many things at once. And all the time, when you feel like you have no idea what's going on in a different language, your brain is actually learning. It's becoming familiar with the rhythms of the language, with the speed at which people talk, with the tones of the language. You know, when we speak English, our voices don't really go like this. You know, I sound like a machine when I do that. So in some languages, your voices do go up and down kind of like that. And the point of my saying all of this is because even when you feel like, I don't know what's happening, I don't know what they're saying, if you can focus on just the sounds they make, you are still benefiting from listening to that. So don't doubt the value of absorption. That doesn't mean that if you just sit in the room and have it playing and you do something else, that you will learn the same way. You have to actually actively focus on what you're listening to. Even if you don't understand, you have to pay attention to it and focus to truly benefit from it and to work and learn efficiently.
The second challenge for me to know the idioms. It's very difficult to get a lot of idioms, but I know some of them, like
Yeah.
It's a piece of cake.
It's a piece of cake.
It's a piece of cake. There you go.
Uh,
It's a great
uh,
one.
and uh, it's raining dog and cats.
Cats and dogs. Cats and dogs.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's
Dogs and
raining
cats.
dogs. Yeah.
I love when
It's
other
true.
people
That's
say. I love when when other students say the idioms. It's way more. It's way cooler than when we say them.
yeah, it is.
Mhm.
Especially if they change the idiom in some way. Because when you think about it, there's no difference between it's raining cats and dogs and it's raining dogs and cats.
Right.
It's just we say one and we don't say the other. There's
Yeah.
no reason for that. That's just how the expression is, even though they mean the exact same thing. You know.
Sure.
So, what do you guys think? Let's talk about learning new languages in general. What do you guys think the hardest language to learn on your own would be? Anyone have any guesses?
Like just generally speaking, what language is hardest?
Anyone? Yes. Which one do you guys think is the hardest?
Oh man,
Korean.
Korean.
Korean's probably hard.
I think Russian's pretty up there.
Russian's pretty hard.
I know everybody says Chinese and Japanese. Asian languages tend to be hard. I would like to see someone learn like Thai or one of the smaller. I mean, just how about any lesser known language is pretty going to be pretty difficult because you don't have that background knowledge. You don't even know how to say one word, nor you know the alphabet or anything like that. It's really, I think it's beyond the 20 languages that we all kind of think of on a daily basis of what languages there are. There are thousands of languages too that no one knows of, and I'd probably say like of the mid-range ones though, Thai. I can imagine learning Thai.
Yeah, that's definitely hard. So that's a great point you made, Ruben. That there are a lot of languages people don't even think about. So the first factor involved in this is what your native language and what other languages you speak are. Like you said, if you speak a language in the same family, it automatically makes learning a new language in that family much easier. Like, for example, Indo-European languages. If you know German, learning Russian is much easier than learning Chinese because it's in the same family. It's in the same group. So that's one factor.
Not as much German and Russian as German and Dutch or something. Or Russian,
yes, even closer. Then or for example, the Romance languages, Spanish and Portuguese. I know, Ruben, you and I each speak 3 different Romance languages, and I don't know about you, but for me, learning one of them was so much easier because I knew the other 2.
Sure.
So that's a major factor in this. But in terms of learning on your own, if we go back to the ways that people learn on their own, we were talking before about you buy a book from this company, or you find a teacher or a coach, and you get advice. So what do you do if the language is only spoken by, let's say, 1,000 people living in the Amazon? That's a lot harder to learn. There aren't that many people out there that speak it. There aren't really texts that explain the grammar of the language and all of that. Usually not. So, access to resources is a huge factor. Now, how about dead languages? Latin, a lot of people have studied Latin. It's a dead language, but it's not necessarily easy to learn, but it's much easier to learn than, say, Sanskrit or something like Hittite, which is, there's ancient Hittite. There are texts and there are people who can read it, but there are so few people who can read it, and there's so much that's not fully understood about the language because it's been so long since people have spoken it that, it's difficult. So I would say, my guess, I'm going to say Hittite is probably one of the harder languages to learn on your own.
Whoa, you dropping some names, some language names. Hittite.
Yeah.
I feel like there are people who might not know much about it. Oh yeah, Jihad, Gigi.
We can
Gigi.
Gigi, we can hear you, I think. Gigi, are you there?
It's gonna be hard. Kind of muffled, but we can hear you just a little bit. Hello.
Hi. Yes.
Yeah, it seems a little bit difficult to hear, though.
It's a little difficult to hear. I think it might be best for you to participate in the chat, I guess. Or you can keep trying, but it's a little hard to understand your questions or the things that you're saying.
Okay. but definitely type them. Type them in the chat if we can have you participate still. I want to go back if we can just to keep things moving too. That the motivators for languages too might not be something that you have control over. Of course, so we talked about things that you're interested in. You're going to be interested because you like doing them. For a love interest or for a significant other, it's kind of something that you are pursuing, and so it makes it easier to be around the language if you're already interested in this person, romantically or not romantically. But talking about the motivation of a job or money or some kind of other opportunity in a different country, where you see a lot of countries nowadays, especially in, let's just say everywhere in the world, with economic situations that are less than optimal, try to go somewhere else just because it's not going well for them. They can't make it work in their country. And it usually requires learning another language. What do you do in that situation? You're so desperate because either you're looking for a job, so that requires not only language but cultural awareness, and and you have to speak well enough to be able to work in the language. It's not just getting by socially ordering in a restaurant. It's being able to know your craft and know your field of study in that language too. And of course, this happens to English all the time because we always use English as everyone's second language in business or third language, but it's never easy to kind of feel obligated to learn. What do you guys think about that? Hey, Yusuf.
Hi, Yusuf.
Hi, Ruben. How are you?
How's it going?
What's your name? Franca? What?
My name is
Sam. It's Sam.
Sam, but
Sam.
you can call me
How are you
Linguas
guys?
Francas.
All right.
Great.
How are you?
Doing great. Yeah. So, welcome. And those are some fantastic points you just made, Ruben. And a lot of people do learn for that reason, for their careers, for job opportunities, or just to survive in a new country that they are currently in. Those aren't positive motivators, but they're very powerful motivators. You think, I want to be able to order food at a restaurant without embarrassing myself, for example. Or I want to understand when people give me directions. I want to be able to find my way to the store.
Yeah.
Have you guys used a language because you had to learn it? Have you, Yusuf or Sam, have you had to learn a foreign language because of a job opportunity, or did you study harder because of a financial opportunity?
No, I want to learn about Spanish and Japanese. Maybe Spanish for my career, but in Japanese just because I'm a fan of anime and I like the Japanese accent. That's why I want to learn it. But Spanish, I want to learn Spanish for my career.
That's great.
What field are you in again? What kind of work do you do?
I'm studying. I study computer networking. So
Sweet.
Great.
Yeah, and also Spain is close to Morocco. Maybe if I didn't find a job here, maybe
Just go on
almost
to Spain.
Spain. Why not?
That's not a bad place. Neither place is bad to live, I'd say.
Yeah, I've lived in Spain before, and I visited Morocco, but I was only in Tangier.
Yeah.
I would love to go back. So, yeah, that's very interesting. And to answer your question before, Ruben, I absolutely have. I learned Spanish in the first place when I lived in Paraguay, which is because I went there speaking some French, but no Spanish. So I learned Spanish there. That's also why I speak some Guarani. And
Guarana. They speak Guarana.
We should make this I think I know enough. I could totally tell a fun fact about Guarani one every class or every conversation we have.
All right,
So the
I'm down.
today would be, you know Iguazu Falls?
I do.
So, do you know the origin of the name?
I don't know. Even if I did, I would ask you to tell everybody.
Okay. So, Iguazu, written in Guarani as with a Y and then Wasu, the letter Y alone is pronounced and it's the word for water.
Say that one more time for everybody.
It's a sound that we don't have in English or any of the other languages I speak well.
One more time.
Means water, and wasu means big. So it's big water. And that explains it for the huge waterfalls.
That's funny.
We'll give props for that. That deserves lots of props. Everybody start propping Sam for that one. Every time you start making sounds that are weird, you gotta give props for that.
Yeah.
And they're weird, but they're part of a language that over 5 million people speak. So
you know that.
Yeah.
Save those tips, Sam. Save them for the rest. We got a lot of tips.
All right. I'll save the other ones for later. But the point of that is I am a strong believer that anyone can learn any language.
Exactly.
All you need is the right resources, the motivation, the amount of time, and it helps to have the right teacher too. But you can do it without a teacher. You can learn a language on your own. Probably any language on your own. You just need to have the time, motivation, patience, and resources.
Just those things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, is there anything else you can think of that you absolutely?
No, I wasn't. I didn't mean to offend that. I was just saying that, yeah, it's hard to really reinvent the wheel when it comes to starting off from zero. Zero to something is going to take those things. You know, we know that, and people know that generally, I think, and that's why the barrier to entry is really quite high, strong, big, because you realize that if you're going to do this, you got to commit to the first few months at least. You got to see how you got to play this out and see what what really you could make an effort with this and see how far it takes you. At least initially, it's because I know that we can get more specific. We can think of more specific processes that work for us. Maybe we can talk about our processes individually, because it's hard to know who people are when they're watching and what their styles of learning are. But maybe we can get specific ourselves. We can help people with just a trial, a specific scenario where we took a language and tried to learn it on our own. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. We haven't talked too much about that. Well, I in a previous conversation, I think I've told you before that the two things that are probably most important for me are consistency of study habits and variety of activities and study techniques. So what I mean by consistency is making sure you do something every day. Like, for example, Islam was talking about 10 words a day. You know, having that kind of goal and doing that every single day, making a point of doing it every single day. Like I devote, even on my most busy days, I devote 20 minutes every morning and 20 minutes every evening to some type of focused language study.
Wow.
And so, you know, even if I work 12 hours of do other things, 12 hours of work in that day and I'm brain dead, I still force myself to do 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening. And sometimes I fall asleep on a book or on my computer, but I do it. Consistency, for me, that's something that really works and really helps me improve. In terms of variety, so I have a lot of very different interests. So I like to do all kinds of different things. And I like to be exposed to all different aspects of the language, ways in which people use it. Literature, movies, just casual conversations, sometimes technical language, you know, anything I can get my hands on, I devour. So And the way I try to go about studying materials, I try new things all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And when I work with students, I do the same thing. I try new techniques with them all the time because everyone learns in a different way. And some things work really well for some people and don't work at all with other people. So have you ever experienced that, Ruben, that you tried some kind of technique with someone and it just wasn't really working, and you tried it with someone else and it's like an aha moment and everything was perfect?
Yeah, for sure. I'll tell you that I, by the way, wrote down Sam's techniques on the side here for everyone who missed them. The techniques of consistency with your study habits, and the second one is varying the activities. So not doing the same thing every single day. I tried something. I'll tell you right now that my study habits are a little bit different from yours in that I don't like the daily consistency. While a great strategy doesn't work for me personally and a lot of my students, and segueing into that, because it's really hard to ask people to do something every single day. Really hard. Even adults. I mean, kids especially hard, but adults, we get lazy, we get preoccupied, and it's really hard. And one way I tried to do, because with pronunciation, it's really necessary to get at the very beginning a lot of practice and a lot of feedback at once, at the same time, in time. And so I had a student who I was trying to get to send me a recording via WhatsApp every day for 7 days. That was the 7-day challenge. I tried this out. This is you can try this with your students or with yourselves. And the idea was that he just had to record something, a sentence that we'd worked on, vocabulary words, a paragraph from an article, and record his voice, hold down the button, and then let go of it and send it to me automatically. And so I think he sent me like 2 recordings, not even consecutively. And I went back to him and I told him, listen, let's change up the challenge here, okay? Instead of a 7-day challenge, we made it a 3-day challenge. Okay, that happened to be easier. And then I said, okay, instead of having you having to record something for me, I'm gonna make it a little bit more interesting, and I'm gonna let you challenge me to do something as well. Something equally difficult, not like something crazy. And we decided that I was going to do 5 minutes of abdominal workouts, every day for 3 days. I would do the 3 days, and I was happy to do that, something I wanted to do anyway. And this guy sent me the first day, and usually it's me who had to remind him, sent me the first day his recordings, maybe 2 or 3 of them, in fact. And so I got out of my car, into this industrial park, it was like where offices are. I got on the grass, I'm wearing a button-up shirt and slacks, and I did my 5 minutes. I took a video of it to show him I'm doing it, took a video of it, did my 5-minute abs. Not the whole 5 minutes video, but a little bit. And sure enough, second day, I got a recording. Third day, I got a recording. For some reason, having the accountability was the kicker for him, but the same thing didn't work for other people. I tried that with others since, and you don't feel the same urgency as others. So that was something that worked for me. Being consistent is great, but man, is it better to have someone that's going to be either doing something similar or that there's a consequence if you don't do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it depends on the person too. I think that kind of thing, if you did that, that would work very effectively with me. But I think some people would just kind of feel guilty, and then they might have this overwhelming guilt hanging over their head as you do more and more ab workouts, and they miss 1, 2, 3 days in a row. Well, it depends. Everyone's different, and I think that's one of the key points here is that you have to try different techniques to find what works for each student and for yourself. So that's really great. That's fantastic, though, that you pull over in the middle of an industrial area.
I did. It was like, I guess I got to do it. We agreed on a time. It was like 6 p.m. And I was like, oh, I didn't know if you would do it. I was going to do mine anyway, but I was going to do it and then send it to him to say, hey, come on. But he beat me. He beat me to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was kind of an interesting thing.
I see here a comment that German would be hands down the hardest language. I don't know. I think people like to talk about how German grammar is very difficult, and the little bit of German I know agrees with that claim. However, I still think that for me, learning Chinese or Japanese would be a lot harder, or learning ancient Hittite, for example, as I said before, or even something I still speak today, like learning Miskitu, which is an indigenous language they speak on the Atlantic coast of Nicaragua. I spent some time there.
Let's just name all the most obscure languages and say those would be the hardest ones. Malayalam, a language from southern India, I tried to learn. Not easy.
Yeah,
I never gave it a chance.
Actually, for the research I was doing for my undergraduate thesis.
Yeah.
But I just learned a little bit.
That's great. It's great to get even just a little bit, just to get a sense of other parts of the world and languages that, people will never really, the languages will never see the light of day.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And it opens your mind, too, when little things. I won't tell anymore, but I opened my mind in all kinds of ways with Guarani, simply the different way of looking at the world. But save that for next time. Now, Yusuf asked if speaking and listening can be enough to learn a language. I would say that depends on why you want to learn the language, how well you want to learn the language, and what your learning goals in general. If all you want to be able to do is have conversations, then if that is you, and you are the kind of person who learns best speaking and listening, then yes, you can. However, I personally am not that way. I am a very visual person. So, for example, when I hear a new word, one of the first things I do is spell it in my mind. I think this is how you spell that word. I have a little chalkboard in my head and I write the word for myself. And that actually really helps me remember the word. But that's how my mind works. And everyone is different. Some people hear sounds and they know how to say things and speak, but they don't know how to spell anything in a language they speak. And that's fine too. Everyone is different. I'm like I said, reading and writing is more the way my mind works. Yeah. But I try to use all different types of techniques when I teach, and when I teach myself too, because kind of a wholesome, well-rounded approach I find works the best. What do you think, Ruben?
Yeah, I agree with that. It's nice. I think inevitably you're going to have to see the written. If it's a developed language that's in print. It's funny too, because there are a lot of languages, even ones that are quite developed, that don't quite have the same developed writing system, like Swiss German, for example.
Yep.
If you're familiar, Swiss German is the product of German being spoken in Switzerland, if you can imagine, and because everybody studies German in school, regular German, high German, whatever you call it, the Swiss, in order to differentiate themselves, have come up with this different writing system, which is basically without rules. It's kind of like spelling things phonetically, like we might do informally online, but it's like, well, if you're going to move to Switzerland, if you actually live there, you're going to have to learn German with the right spelling. Otherwise, you're going to be completely confused as to what the possible spellings are. You have to come from you have to be close to a native speaker to maybe understand those things. But I was going to say that it might be one of those languages where, yeah, speaking and listening is perfectly fine, like to avoid that part of it if you really didn't want to have to deal with it. There are plenty of languages where the writing system isn't developed enough to even matter, and you're going to have to use English or some other language that's more common in that area as you're writing and reading anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the case of Swiss German, it gets even more complicated because in different regions of the German-speaking part of Switzerland, they have completely different dialects of Swiss German, and sometimes they can't even really understand each other. In the case, it's also, again, it depends on what you're there for. So I have a friend who's Paraguayan who married a Swiss woman who now lives in Switzerland. But when they first went there together, he learned standard High German. Then he had to learn Swiss German, and he had to learn how to write Swiss and read in Swiss German as well because he studied in a Swiss German university.
Oh my gosh.
And he had to learn to read and write in High German because academic papers would be written in that or English, which he knew ahead of time. So it depends. But it's true though that in a place that speaks a lesser known, maybe less standardized dialect of a language, maybe reading and writing is less important, as you said, Ruben. Mm-hmm. But it all just depends. So
definitely, lots of factors here.
We've been talking for a while now. I would say I think it's about that time we should wrap things up.
That's Kazuki. We just joined and we're just finishing up, man. You got to watch the replay.
Yeah, sorry, Kazuki. Any final points you'd like to make, Ruben?
No, we just say that it's always a great thing to learn a new language and to learn. I always think that languages are power, and communication is really a great way to open your mind to different parts of the world. And if you're thinking about it, you do have resources. It doesn't have to be on your own. As Sam says, if you're reaching out to anybody, you're already not doing it on your own. So you might as well find resources that you really think will be helpful for you. Heed our advice. We have lots of techniques here, as to summarize this for Sam, to be able to consistently practice. So if you can find it in your schedules to do this every single day, surely you'll get there faster. If you can vary up the materials you're using, the activities you're doing, so you're not just watching movies all day long. One a week is plenty, once every 2 weeks, but that you're doing something that keeps you stimulated, but also challenged. That's helpful. It keeps you motivated too. Finding things to do that have to do with your interests. Remember, those are always helpful to keep your mind like wanting to continue. Or a person, somebody, whether it's a girlfriend, boyfriend, or just a regular friend, or a mentor, even a teacher, a coach, that you're like, I want to speak like this person. I know that it's going to be helpful because this person is the style I kind of want to go for. And that keeps you engaged too. But if you have other questions too, we have Sam at Linguas Francas and Ruben at Linguistix SF. You can follow us here on Blab or tweet at us at those handles and find us online. You're savvy enough; you can find us. If you really wanted to find us, but we'll be happy to talk more about this too and provide. If you have individual questions or anything that you'd like to bring up, send us messages. Either one of us will happy to help you out.
Please do. We love answering questions. It's what we're here for. So thank you for the recap on all of the highlights of today's conversation, Ruben. One final point. Relax, breathe, and don't give up. So, even with any aspect of language, you got to breathe. If you don't breathe, you'll die. Any aspect of life, that's true. But any aspect of language, relax. In the case of pronunciation, which is Ruben's specialty, you can't, your muscles, the muscles in your mouth aren't necessarily used to moving in these new ways to speak this language. So by getting stressed and locking up your jaw, you're just making your life so much harder. Stay loose, relax.
Stay loose, make it easy.
Let it flow. Breathe and have fun. Enjoy it. Languages are fun. Make the most of it. So thank you all so much for being here. It's really great to be having this conversation with all of you. Feel free to send us messages later and follow us for more great conversations.
Bye, guys. Thanks so much.
Hold on.
Take care, everyone.